This is the podcast Wide Open Spaces with Ilise, with me, the fiery redhead. You can listen to this podcast anywhere you love listening to your favorite podcasts. Check me out at wideopenspaceswithilise.com. Ilise is spelled Ilise. Now let's pop in our earbuds and let's talk and evolve together. Well, I'm back from my vacation, rested, my brain a little bit lighter, my shoulders with no weight upon them. And well, I guess that's what vacation is all about. No matter where you go, what you do, even if it's a staycation. And before I get started with the next episode, I want to shout out to Brazil, Canada, Australia, Argentina, and of course the United States for having my largest amount of downloads for my last podcast in episode 161. So I want to thank you for listening and keep listening. And give me a shout out. Go to any of my social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Threads, TikTok, and leave me a message. And don't forget to hit that love button. Okay, so this is episode number 162. Do you nurture yourself? The art of living your life. There's definitely an art to living life, and it depends on how you want to color it, with what colors you choose, with what moods and what feelings, and what motivation you have. And so there truly is an art to how we evolve and move forward in our life. And I wanted to focus today on nurturing. I've got so many things going on in my head. I'm going to post later on social media a little bit my thoughts on empty nesters because I'm back on that track again. And well, I've just got a lot going on in my head. And most of us do, right? We're the ultimate multitaskers. And especially here in the United States. Let's be real. If you are one of my abroad listeners, here in the US, we are on a nonstop button. We're kind of raised that way to go, go, go. And if we just want to plop on the couch and take a little siesta, we're almost made to feel guilty for it. And we have that internal message where we start to process, is it okay if I plop on the couch for 10, 15 minutes? I should be doing work. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. That's the mentality here in the United States. And there are a very small percentage of the population who function very well at that level. But I wonder what's going on really beneath the surface of those people. But I know for most, we don't function well. And there are things in our life, because we're always on the go, that kind of fall to the ground like a big crumpled pile of dirty clothes. And they're just there and we don't deal with them, and they're always hanging over us. Like I started this podcast out about getting back from my vacation and feeling lighter. My shoulders not having that tightness and that heaviness. My brain feeling more relaxed. My body feeling relaxed. I'm more in slow motion and I'm trying to grasp onto that. I don't want to let that go. And so because we are on and we're preached to and taught to go, go, go. I mean, if you have any kids, I mean, mine are grown now, but even when they were younger, I'm in my 50s. And when I went to school, well, it's a lot different than what a kindergartner experiences now. They're teaching the younger ages more advanced learning, things that we didn't learn to maybe third grade. They're teaching in kindergarten. trying to keep up with the academic levels of other countries and being the first in this, in science and nature and the arts. And so we teach our kids at a much younger age things that their brains may not even be ready or developed to really absorb. And I experienced that with one of my children on how it was just so fast paced, but she wasn't ready. Her brain wasn't ready to go at that pace. And that transfers into our adulthood. This constant learning, keeping going, trying to outdo the next person, always moving, feeling guilty for that downtime. So I went abroad this summer. I went to a few places actually, even locally. I went to Las Vegas. I went to Orlando, Florida to a very, very cool tattoo convention, which, well, we'll discuss it another time. And I went to Spain, France, and Italy. And I had a wonderful time. I went with my 19-year-old daughter, just the two of us, the one who's in college right now. And it was a great mother-daughter bonding time. We're very much alike. Our heads butt a lot. But I feel like that trip took our relationship to a new level and a different direction. And we see how much alike we are. And then we give each other a little bit more grace and we listen better. So this trip was so much of that when I went to abroad. I was partially on land and partially on a cruise. The cruise is where it took us to France and Italy, Ibiza. And, well, I think going abroad, and even if you are in the United States and you cross the border to Mexico or to Canada, it's a different culture. It's a different lifestyle, different than the United States. And so when you travel someplace else, it's not just about the vacation, it's about the learning lessons. And I learned a lot on this trip about how other countries nurture themselves. I kept my eyes wide open, not in a way where I was stressed, just observant, to stop, to slow down, to really take in what my eyes were seeing, to stop on specific things with my view instead of just grazing over the atmosphere, the areas that I was walking through. And it was really hard in the beginning because, well, I'm from the US and I'm go, 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 go. And I know those of you who are listening to me that are from the US, or if you've traveled to the US, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes you're dual citizens and you live in two different places. And that's partially why you do, because you come here to the US and then you need a break because it's so freaking intense. So what did I see on how others nurtured themselves? Well, before I go there, I want you to think, how do you nurture yourself? How do you live the art of living your life? What is the art of your life? How do you cope? How do you evolve? How do you move forward? What do you do when you're stuck? What do you do when you need to problem solve, when things are chaotic? We all get that, right? Where we feel like things are piling on, one thing after another. You can't even breathe. What do you do? How do you nurture yourself? Well, most of us say, I've got no time to nurture myself. Well, if that's the way you live your entire life, you're moderately screwed because the brain and the physical body can only take so much. We nurture ourselves. Instinctually, we nurture ourselves with food. Our bodies do not function without food. And if you've ever fasted or for some reason had to go without meals, you know what happens. You felt it, what the body does without its nutrients and its fuel. So instinctually, we nurture ourselves. And I want you to focus beyond that, how do you nurture yourself in other ways? Do you take that time out? Do you take a little siesta in the middle of the day? Do you take a break from your work life and have a real lunch hour away from work? Or do you sit and eat and talk about work? Because then that's not a lunch hour. That's the instinctual nurturing of food, but it's not nurturing the other physical aspects and the mental aspects of our body. Nurturing ourselves is a huge part of mental health. And that's why we're here, right? To evolve, to talk together on how we each individuals, no matter where we are, how we live, how can we evolve, how can we move forward in our lives. And it has to do with nurturing. And I want you to really think, be honest. How do you nurture yourself? Not once a week. Every single day. And if you're a busy professional, it's tough. If you're a parent who works and raises kids, it's tough. If you're a college student, it's tough. If you're a kid in high school, it's tough. If you're someone in your retirement age, but yet your body is changing and you have different physical and health issues, it gets tough to focus on nurturing ourselves. So today, when you leave this podcast, when you're done listening to my voice, you will go out and nurture yourself, and you will have identified ways to nurture yourself. And how am I going to get you there? Well, I'm going to give you some of my observations that I experienced, how other cultures nurture themselves, to hopefully get your creative juices flowing, to focus on your world and your environment and how you can tweak things and do things a little bit differently to incorporate the art of living your life and nurturing yourself. And I like to call it an art. Well, it makes it sound a little bit more intriguing because nurturing ourselves isn't black and white. It is intriguing. It is multidimensional. So let's dive in. So I spent some time this summer in Barcelona, Spain. Shout out to Spain. I really never wanted to go to Spain before. I don't know why, it just wasn't something that was on my top choice. But we were picking a cruise and we had to decide what itinerary and where we wanted to go from. And well, it was Barcelona round trip. And I'm so glad that I did because I really fell in love with Spain. I fell in love with its people, its environment, the European streets that you experience in all the other European countries, and their lifestyle, and really taking in the differences that I saw in Spain versus the US. Well, let me start with one of the very first things that I experienced. So it was my birthday, and we had planned to go to this market that's famous in Spain and go to lunch, and then in the evening we were going to see a flamenco dancing show. Pretty good birthday, right? So we get our Uber. Well, that was the first frustrating part where I could see the difference from the United States and Spain. US, you want an Uber, it's right there for you. Maybe you wait 5 minutes. In Barcelona, 20, 30 minutes. Sometimes it takes that long just to get somebody to pick up your ride. And so initially that frustration tolerance level of my daughter and myself was reaching a little bit of a peak. And we didn't know at that time, was this a trend? Is this how it is? Yeah, that's how it is. And you've just got to build that time in, and you've got to change your whole thought process because that's not the way we're used to living. In the US, you're staying at a hotel, you walk out, you put in Uber, it's there. Well, not in Barcelona. And I think a lot of it has to do with the lifestyle and people making the decisions of, is it my siesta time? Do I really want to go drive out that far to pick up that ride? Where here, everybody just picks up the ride. But for them, it's not so easy because I believe it has to do with prioritizing their time. If I go to pick up this ride that's going to take me maybe 45 minutes round trip, that's going to take away from something that they might have been doing for themselves. And we talked to some of our Uber drivers, and that really was part of it. And so it was very interesting how they would not literally pick up a ride so that they could have this other time for themselves, to nurture themselves, whether it's siesta time or whatever. And you've all heard about the European siesta. It's big in Spain. There are stores that literally pull down their shutter things and close for whatever it is, an hour, 2 hours. And you really have to go to their website sometimes if you're going to a big store to make sure they're open. And so that was the first thing. So we go to lunch and we go to this nice little half in, half outdoor Mediterranean seafood type of restaurant. And we had the greatest waiter. He was a little bit of an older gentleman, very tall with his Spanish accent. And he was just so nice. And he asked us if we had just gotten here. He puts down the Spanish olives on our table. And he tells us about the menu. And we're just so excited. And it's my birthday. So I'm looking forward to a nice meal, fingers crossed. And we order charcuterie and croquetas. And we had some alcohol. And it was a nice lunch. And the food came out really fast. And I was kind of like, wow, that was fast. And then the fastness ended there. And as we ate slowly and talked about our trip getting to Spain and all the little things that happened on the way there, we noticed we're finished with our food and we're looking for our waiter. And he's zooming around table to table. And well, I don't want to bother him. He'll come over to us and ask us if we want anything else or, can he give us the check? Well, when I tell you, maybe 20 minutes went by. And it wasn't like I didn't try to wave him down, but his focus was in his head wherever he was going, and that's where he was focusing. Well, this wasn't the only restaurant. This was in every restaurant in Spain. And in the beginning, I'm a tourist. I want to get up and go. I finished my meal. I want to go. I want to sightsee. I want to go places. I'm here for a limited time. When he finally comes over, we pay the check. And meal after meal after that, we noticed this is how they do it, at least in Barcelona, Spain. But it did happen in other places that we went to in Italy and France as well. And my daughter and I talked about it, and we realized it's not just about putting the food into our bodies to nurture ourselves, that instinctual need. It's about the atmosphere. It's about the experience. Yes, do people go out to eat so they don't have to cook? I'm not a cook. Of course, that's why I go out to eat. But even the locals, why are they there? It's not just about eating and nurturing. It's about the entire experience of the meal. Tasting the flavors, taking the time, and then the communication afterwards. Sitting there and being with the person you're with instead of getting up quickly, paying your bill, and off to the next thing. And this was in every restaurant we went to, even the cafes. Sometimes a meal could take almost 2 hours. And obviously, if you have somewhere to be and you have a time thing, yes, you can rush them along and you can get their attention. But we tried not to if there wasn't someplace we had to be for a specific time slot. We tried to embrace. And as time went on, well, that anxiety of wanting to pay the bill and getting up and going started to slowly dissipate. And we started to see the full picture of how this meal that we instinctually eat is a whole experience of nurturing yourself in so many different ways. And so, even though you might be in a restaurant in the US, yeah, you'll notice they want to move those tables. Don't feel the pressure next time. You meet a friend for dinner and you can feel and you see people waiting and to get a table and you feel like, oh my God, I should eat and get up and let the table. You know how many times I've been out where I've been with girlfriends talking, they're like, oh, there's people waiting, we should really get up and leave. And yes, I don't mean sit there for an hour while there's a long line, but don't be like that. Part of your experience is to be there with those people. Don't let the environment intimidate you to take away the full onset of that nurturing experience. That is the art of nurturing yourself, the art of living your life by changing and not letting the parameters and the things around you set the limits and tell you how that meal should go. Look at the menu, order the food, order your drinks, eat. Do you want dessert? No, thank you. Do you want coffee? No, thank you. Here's your check. Bye-bye. I mean, I felt anxiety just doing that now. So the next time you go to a meal, not if it's on your lunch break, obviously, you have time limits. When you don't, when you're meeting somebody, when it's the weekend and maybe you're meeting a family member or spending time with your children, make that meal the art of living your life. Make it experience. Take in everything around you. And so as we walked around beautiful Barcelona, and it is very beautiful and the people are very nice, it was extremely crowded. And so yes, that did take away at times from the nurturing, the art of living and walking in Barcelona. And sometimes we had to separate ourselves and go away from those areas because it was quite overwhelming. And I think part of nurturing yourself is seeing those things and acknowledging those things. And instead of saying, well, you know, this is where I came today and this is what I was supposed to be doing. Well, if it's too much and you're not enjoying yourself just to go see this place, well, then maybe it's time to leave. Maybe taking that power and making that decision is a form of nurturing yourself. So if you've been abroad, even in Canada, even when you watch shows, you see these little coffee cafes. And honestly, they're one of my favorite parts about anywhere in Europe. And when you look at these cafes, most of their outdoor seating are small tables with chairs. But the chairs are facing away from the cafe, towards the street, towards the building, towards the piazzas and the plazas. If you're on the Champs-Ilise, those cafes, chairs facing out. Why? So I thought, why? And as I was sitting in one of these cafes, I thought about the coffee shops here in America. And when I go into, whether it's a big chain coffee shop or a small local coffee shop that has couches in it like, you know, Central Perk on Friends, that cozy feeling, what's going on in those coffee shops? Well, if there's people there who are meeting people, there's socialization going on. But what do you see a lot of? You see a lot of people on their computers, on their phones, especially if they've gone there to work and get out of their work environment to work there. And you see just people constantly on their smartphones. I didn't see that when I was sitting in the cafe with the chairs facing away from the cafe. Yes, of course, there was a person here and there checking their phones, of course. But there wasn't, and there weren't people sitting there for hours on their computer. Because what are you doing when you're sitting in that coffee shop? Hours on your computer. And if you go there to work, great. I'm all about getting out of the work environment and going someplace. But if you stay there the whole time and you don't stop to take in your environment, you're really losing out on a balance of work-life nurturing, the art of nurturing. Because you can be in that same place and do both things. Take time for one, take time for the other within that time slot that you're there. And so as I watched people just having a coffee, a cappuccino, a latte, and a croissant, it was the experience of the latte and the croissant and watching the people and the activities going on in the piazza or the markets or the artists that were out in the piazza and watching people as they walked by and looked at their art. And at times there were musicians that you could sit and listen to slow down, to nurture, to let it all go. It's just a simple cafe with chairs in a certain direction that send a message of what the intent of being in this cafe really is for yourself. And I'll never look at a cafe again, anywhere, the same. Because now I know really what I can truly get if I go someplace like that and set that time aside for nurturing. Like my little local friends type coffee shop. I can go there and work, but I can stop also. Eat my croissant and my cappuccino, make sure my laptop is closed, and just take in my environment. Even if it's just to sit there and take some deep breaths in. I'm nurturing myself. How do you nurture yourself? How do you get that feeling, that release of the heaviness that stays on you during the day? I've always talked about frequently the siestas and how Europe has those. And well, they've got it right. They really do. And we look at the US as being so advanced and so high tech, and other countries are too. Like, don't be naive. I know the US and the culture makes us think that way. And maybe we are in certain aspects, of course. But they've got a monopoly on something else. The art of living their lives. So maybe they aren't so high tech in some areas. And some of the things they do are so much more simplistic. But that's the art of living their life. And a lot of us lose that. We're bred to not even think that way. And there's a sickness in that. We only go around once, and it's sad with, parents who obviously want the best for their child, but at a young age, pushing and talking about college and, what do you want to be when you grow up, and the pressure of that, and, getting the grades and the SAT scores. And what if you're not somebody who's made for college? I mean, that's the pressure that is just instinctually placed in ourselves. And I'm not calling parents wrong. I'm not saying I didn't do this. I'm evolving and I'm learning and I'm seeing things that I could have done a lot better. And that's what I'm here for you. If you're in those specific times and periods of your life, on how you can break that chain and break those habits. And if you are a new parent and that little baby starts to grow up and maybe they don't walk as fast as every other child does or say their first word, or maybe you have a girl who doesn't want to dress so girly. Don't make them conform to what society thinks is right. Let them be them. And don't put that pressure on yourself either. Let the uniqueness and let the development. And yes, of course, if a child you sing is developmentally delayed, of course you should get them help. But that's when the point when they're starting to really fall behind. Let them take those late steps. Let them say their first word a month after all your other friends. Until a doctor tells you that there might be an issue, stop comparing yourself to everybody else. And that is one of the major steps in the art of living your life, is stop comparing yourself to your friends, to your family. Be you. That is the best way that you can to nurture yourself. So what are you going to do to nurture yourself? How are you going to change your perspectives? How are you going to slow down? Is it as simple as making the task of going and sitting at a cafe, doing nothing but eating your croissant and cappuccino? What can you do to nurture yourself? Think of the colors that you feel represent a nurturing feeling to you. Put those colors on your body. You'd be amazed on how what you're wearing can change your mood. You'd be amazed. For some, black is because they're depressed, they're feeling dark. For me, black is power. I feel strong. I feel confident. When I am in a black outfit, from my top to my bottom to my shoes, I feel fierce. And others, it may be because they're feeling down and they're depressed. So in that part of nurturing yourself, it's as simplistic as what you put on your body. The colors you choose. If you wake up and you're feeling down, put on a bright color. The subconscious level of what that color will do to internally nurture yourself. See, it can be simple things like that, or huge things like taking a vacation. For me, I'm a wanderer. My new book that's out, The Wanderlust Within, The Journey to Self-Discovery, is about the wanderlust inside of me and the wanderlust that I experience with the places that I go. The wanderlust with my mental health, and then the wanderlust of physically where I go. And for me, I've always had the lust for traveling. And I understand not everybody can travel for different reasons. Sometimes it can just be a staycation that can totally change your perspective on everything and give you that break from everyday life, nurturing yourself. So I don't want to hear I don't have the money to travel and I don't have the money to do these things and that things. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have no money to do anything that costs. But there are so many free things out there. And if you have that place in your home that can be your safe spot, your comfy spot, and you spend some time there, away from the work and the hustle and the bustle of the city and the streets, that's nurturing yourself. That's a little bit of a staycation. Go to a park, go to a library, they're free. Go window shopping, it's free. There are things out there if you choose to do and to make that effort. The art of living your life. How are you going to live your life? This podcast is coming to an end and you're going to move on. Go back to work, go back to all your chores, go run your errands, whatever it is. But what are you going to do to nurture yourself today and tomorrow and the next day, every day? Well, it's up to you from here. I can only plant the seed. You have to make it grow. You have to water it. You have to nurture it. So how are you going to create your life? As a form of art, an art of nurturing yourself. I mentioned my book earlier. It's been out for about a month now. Wanderlust Within, A Journey to Self-Discovery by Ilise Litwin. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Goodreads. Just Google my name. There's a bunch of other places. It was so cool. There were bookstores in Japan and China and Italy that are selling my book. If you've ever thought about writing your own book, maybe now's the time. Maybe that's the way you start to nurture yourself. But check my book out. It's an easy read. It's to give you some more thoughts and ideas in a fun way, in a serious way, in a way that you will nurture yourself and grow and evolve. Thank you so much for joining me today at Wide Open Spaces with Ilise. Remember, positive thoughts always create positive energy. Go out and explore all those wide open spaces in your world. Please go to my social media, smash that love button, follow me, comment in the different areas, even on my website, or maybe even go and purchase my book. And until next time, my friends, ciao.